The Bar Stoolie is a really great Cheers episode. I know I say that about pretty much every Cheers episode, but I really mean it. This is the 10th episode of the 4th season, directed, of course, by the wonderful James Burrows, and there will be spoilers from now as I discuss various aspects of the episode. And there are a few reasons why this is brilliant. The first is that it's very Cliff centric. I love Cliff. And the second is that we have some interesting character development with Sam and Carla. And I'll talk about that when I get there. Most of my thoughts are chronological. And it starts off with Woody trying to get tape recordings from the gang at Cheer to send back to his family at Hanover. And there's a long message from Diane. It's a nice enough intro. Interestingly, the scene immediately after the theme song picks up where that left off, and that rarely happens, but it worked well enough. Sam is talking about a date that he has that evening. It's with a woman called Claudia, played by Claudia Cron, and she's a very interesting character, and I'll talk more about her in a moment. Very quickly after that, we're establishing all of the main narratives very quickly. Cliff gets a phone call at Cheers, which basically never happens, and when he answers the phone, he tells the person on the other end that he shouldn't have called, he doesn't want to speak to him. And there is, of course, that brief curiosity of not knowing who he was talking to, but it's very quickly established that it was his father, his estranged father, and he doesn't want to speak to him. And I think his father is definitely a very interesting character. He does enter Cheers a little later, and I have some thoughts on how Cliff reacts in this, but I'll get there in a moment. First of all, back to Claudia, and actually, instead of going chronologically through the rest of the episode, I will address the story with Sam and Claudia and Diane first. Then I'll come back to Cliff. Claudia is reading. She's reading an art magazine, and Diane talks to her while she's waiting for Sam to finish up. And it turns out that Claudia is intellectual and she gets along well with Diane. And we have this bit of character development with Sam where, for the first time, well, since Diane, he is choosing to go on a date with a woman who is intelligent. And we're starting to see this shift from the Sam who would date 3 or 4 stereotypical bimbos, and I don't like that word, but that's obviously the best way to describe the characters. That's how they're portrayed, as being unintelligent. Basically everything Diane isn't. But we're starting to see this shift with Sam and the kind of people he wants to date. And I think that this is a real sign of maturity and a sign that Sam is actually starting to grow up. One could suggest that it's also a sign that actually he loved Diane and really grew to love her personality. Well, maybe not all of her personality, but certain aspects of it, he actually admired that, and he's now seeking that out in other women. I don't know if that's true or if it is just a case that Sam is starting to mature, but however you want to look at it, we have some really great character development there. I thought it was so obvious what was going to happen when Sam phoned up the restaurant and said that it was a party of 3, but he wanted one intimate table and one table far away. I thought it was so obvious that Diane and Claudia would end up getting the table together and Sam would eat on his own. And the way this part of the narrative ended, with Diane and Sam going up for cheesecake at Melville's, I just thought was so sweet. We've come such a long way from the Sam and Diane who couldn't be in the same room together, and it's so lovely to see. The rest of the episode focuses, of course, on Cliff, and we get to meet his father, Mr. Clavin, played by Dick O'Neill. And initially, when he says that he doesn't know what his son even looks like, Cliff goes to sit next to him in the bar to kind of get a feel of things and to see what he's like without having to reveal his presence and to reveal that he is Cliff. And his father seemed like a really genuine, nice person. He wanted to make amends. How could you not love this character? He really, really drew us in. And he did with Cliff. And Cliff ends up spending time with him and clearly loves having his father there. And it's so, so sweet. And then his father invites him to run away to Australia with him, which is where his father's going. He went to make amends with Cliff before he left the country. And we learn that he's not just leaving the country, he is running. He has to get out of America, out of the States, as quickly as he can. And he admits quite openly to Cliff that this is because of real estate fraud. And we have a really great moment here where his father's in the bathroom and Cliff picks up the phone at the bar to call him in because his father, the crook, is about to do a runner. And there's this moment where Cliff's on the phone, and just before he hangs up, he asks for whoever deals with lousy fathers or crummy fathers. I can't remember the exact phrase he used, but look at Carla's facial expression. There's almost an element of sympathy and pity on her face. It's amazing. It's so subtle. And if you don't know how she normally treats Cliff, it wouldn't mean anything. But this is really the first time we've seen Carla feeling sorry for Cliff, and not in a sarcastic way. And I think that that's another great bit of character development. And I wasn't the only one to notice that, because Norm points it out and says that for once Carla was almost treating Cliff like a human being. And of course, Carla hurts Norm for saying this. But I thought that was such a great moment that we have Sam's character development and Carla's. And I absolutely loved it. And this carries on because his father has escaped and Cliff is hurting. And Carla helps him out by saying, and I quote, "It's a little known fact." She gives him his own little known fact about how people are being evaporated out of bathrooms, and she really helps him out. And then, of course, Cliff eventually goes off on one about the Bermuda Triangle. And I think Carla was so amazing in this. Cliff is the main focus, but what Carla did was out of character, but a step in the right direction. And I loved it. It's a beautiful episode. Really great turning points for Sam and Carla, but also a wonderful Cliff focused episode. As I said, the Bar Stoolie is a great episode. There are many reasons for this, and I think it's one that I'll always really thoroughly enjoy, with some really important turning points for various characters, and I just love Cliff. The Bar Stoolie is definitely a brilliant episode of Cheers.